Weka, Rajesh, Naveen, Wisam, SN, MH Vyas. Welcome. Mayank just tuned in. Wolf's here. Yay. Matt. J. Young D. Thank you for joining. Others will be coming in. So I have a few extra points today, and therefore I think we should get started by taking a little time to do some meditation. So let's try this. Sit up a little straighter than you were a few seconds ago, and just notice what it feels like to bring your spine a little straighter, and then shift your head back, get rid of the tech neck. And that means push like a chin glide, push your chin back a little bit. And then close your eyes. Sit comfortably, but stay alert. And bring your attention to your breath. And just see if you can notice how important it is to breathe, something that we take for granted all day long. But if you just breathe and notice that you're getting a gift at every second that's keeping you alive and vital, and just appreciate it. You can always start there, that I'm being maintained. There's a natural energy running through the world that's being provided to me in so many ways. But first start with the breath, which we can't do without even for a minute. And try to take in a little more oxygen on the inhale than you might have been taking in during the day because of not noticing your breath. You can try breathing in through your nostrils and out through your mouth. And you can also just try a couple of inhalations and exhalations just through your nose. And notice how the air feels coming in and out. And let your awareness rest on your breath. And let all the other thought energy just float away like clouds, and just stay focused. And now we'll practice the principle of excitation, which means that when you bring in an energy that's of higher value into another body, the second body who's receiving then becomes energized, excited, if you will, and it moves up to a new level. So we can do that for ourselves at any time through the practice of mantra. Man means mind, and tra means to lift up. So take an exhalation and then an inhalation. On the next exhalation after that, we'll pronounce together the syllable Om, which is a sound package. You can follow me behind muted mics. Om. Om. And again, breathe and feel your breath. Just let all the other thoughts you might have be at a distance. You're aloof. You have no concern for your life situation, only your life. You're always here in the present when you want to be. You don't have to chase after your life situation. And we'll try the next mantra, which is a 2-syllable mantra, R-A-M-A, Rama, the source of all spiritual pleasure. And I'll start after the next inhalation 3 times. Rama. Rama. Ram. With mantra meditation, just be absorbed in the vibration of the sound. It's a miracle we can make such sounds. We can form syllables. We have syntax. And the mantra is a sound package that brings us a vibration that's meant to lift us up. And now we'll do a 3-syllable mantra, Gauranga. Gauranga. And I'll start after the next exhalation and inhalation. You can follow along with me 3 times. Gauranga. 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 And now breathe and just feel how the vibration of these mantras has brought a higher energy into your mental system. And anytime you want to rise above the whirlpool of the mind, you can bring these mantras into your throat, vibrate them, and just absorb in the sound. And just take a moment to notice that you're a conscious being. You can be aware. You can be aware of your own awareness. And you have free will in that you can point your awareness in any direction that you choose. You just have to be consciously aware that you have that power. And know that where your attention goes, your energy will flow. And take a couple more breaths. Appreciate that you're alive. Nothing else matters. You're here in the moment and you're alive, you're conscious, and you have your free will. And rub your palms together, open your eyes, and we'll come back into our life situation where we get to work now, but we can be more centered and aware that actually we're just situated in a particular place right now, and it's moving around us, and we can develop the art of dealing with each situation, each person in a way that's most beneficial for those we're in touch with and for ourselves. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Drop a note in the chat box how it felt for you to take a moment out to do this guided meditation. Tap, tap, tap. It's interesting how we can communicate. You're all in some other place, and we have these advanced instruments and tools, so we can let each other know what's going on. Relaxed. Good. Relax. Incredibly needed today, Jesse said. Good, Jesse. Nice. It's very refreshing, CK said. And Ayushi Nanda said, I was feeling like I am in Goloka. Goloka's spiritual place. Mayank said it helped me to navigate through the life situation. Nice. Otherwise, we can get swallowed up by the life situation. There's so much in the literatures that I studied and have continued to study about the Golden Monk. Actually, once when I was in my teens and early 20s, I spent a few months out of each year following the path that the Golden Monk took, especially in South India. He went all the way down to the tip of South India, Cape Comorin, and went to various places just to teach this system called Bhakti Yoga. And there are memorial plaques in each one of the places where he stopped, actually. And so I did my best to try to follow the map and go to all those places. And so I took some time while there to study the various teachings that he gave in the various places that he stopped. And today I'm going to talk about some of his teachings about giving. This is one of his main principles and lessons, the doctrine of giving, that we're best situated when we're generously extending ourselves in ways that truly help others. And by doing so, we become energized ourselves. And I'm not talking again about just overextending or becoming servile necessarily, but responsibly giving out to other people what we know will be best for them and staying in that mood of giving. So let's look at a few of the slides, starting with the very first one, which is the admonition, live to give. So you can try this if you think about what your purpose is in one compact unit called a day. We get about 12 hours from sunrise to sunset. And if you just take one of those days and think, how can I give in the best possible way and plan accordingly, you'll notice that you grow. Your stature in life grows, certainly, and so does your consciousness. It expands. So if I were to essentialize one of the most important teachings of the Golden Monk, one of the lessons he gave was that we live by giving. And also on the right-hand side, the Success Sadhana app, a lot of people have contacted us to tell us that they're practicing the 21-day challenge. I've been doing it myself, and it's helpful to have some parameters to follow every day, because unless I have a good plan, then my mind will come up with some other random type of plan that might not be so productive. So it's good to have something to follow. So we made that app. You can check it out. Okay, so live to give. And MH Vyas said, I still have a hard time in focus. Well, you're not the only one. In the Bhagavad Gita, when the student, Arjuna, talks to his teacher, Krishna. He says, the mind has three features. He says, it's mad, as in crazy, it's very determined, and it's very strong. And he said, it seems like it's as hard to control the mind as it is to control the wind. So, teacher, Krishna says it is possible by practice and detachment. And the best kind of meditation, according to the Golden Monk, was to practice mantra meditation. When you get in the practice, you'll notice, for instance, if you start your day by sitting down and purposefully enunciating the mantra and just listening to the sound vibration, it will uplift you. In fact, we see here the Golden Monk says, everywhere you go and to whomever you meet, give the uplifting vibration. So that means he was going everywhere teaching this process of mantra meditation. And you see that the scene there 500 years ago, it's actually a picture of the Golden Monk embracing the governor of the state in which Madras is, back about 550 years ago. There's a history of this. And he would meet all kinds of government officials and ordinary people from the village and teach them the simple process of mantra meditation. And he said, go teach it to others, because then they can develop themselves. So it takes time and a little bit of effort, but you'll find results very quickly if you follow this practice of not only taking in the mantra yourself, but sharing it with others. Let's see the next slide, which is the contribution principles. So there's 4 principles I'll talk about today that the Golden Monk emphasized. So first is, by giving, you grow. This seems contradictory, but in spiritual mathematics, because you're dealing with spiritual energy, not material energy diminishes, and spiritual energy is always increasing and getting better. That's how to live in abundance. And so spiritual mathematics, 1 minus 1 is still 1. When you give away 1 unit from the complete whole remains complete in itself. It's never diminished. Whereas if I have $1,000 and I give away 100, then I only have 900. And I feel like, oh no, it's going down. But when we extend ourselves to give the spiritual vibration, then we increase, and we find that those around us get benefit, and they also help us to increase. So by giving, you grow. That sounds like that is a concept that he gave. And here are a few points about contributing. So the word contribute means to give in order to help someone achieve something. To give in order to help someone achieve something. So it's helpful to give away a tool, something someone can then use for him or herself at home, as an example, and take advantage of something that will improve him or her. So there's a way that you can just temporarily help somebody, and there's a way that you can help them by giving them something that they can help improve themselves. And that's a better principle. And here's some of the ways the Golden Monk talked about helping others. So he talked about the tree. He gave this analogy frequently about a tree and us being gardeners. So trees are benevolent. They're amazing creatures here on the Earth planet. They dig their feet into the ground and they drink the water deep in the ground. And in Sanskrit, a tree, you'll be interested to know, I think, is called pashupa, which means foot drinker. That's what a tree is called. Foot drinker. It's like, what do you do, sir? I drink with my feet. So a tree is a pashupa, and trees provide shade. They provide fruits. They're a source of shelter, even when they die or they're cut down. Then they still go on giving. They provide wood and so forth. And so tree is a frequent analogy in the Golden Monk's presentation. So he talks about the root of our existence, considering that each one of us is connected to the tree. What's the root? It's consciousness. So the first thing is that we improve our life only by improving our consciousness. Whatever we move around in our life externally only gives a temporary sense of improvement. And then we'll come back into our default mode, and we can only come as far as our consciousness allows us to. Therefore, the Golden Monk says all progress starts internally and it expands into our outer world. So if you find that your outer world is in disarray, then the best place to look is inwardly. And furthermore, again and again, the Golden Monk emphasized how consciousness is different from the body. This can be a great relief because the body is a biomechanical robot and we're in it. And it's a little clunky compared to us because we, as consciousness, are unlimitedly subtle, whereas the body, even the mind, which is part of the body, it's like software, is gross, much grosser than we are. So when someone, if subtle, deals with someone gross, then he or she will notice the difference in dealing with the grosser object. So we can cultivate this knowledge, said the Golden Monk, that we're actually different from the body. We're not our physical body. If you check it out in the mirror and you look at your frame, you can imagine, just using your imagination, you can look in the mirror and you can look at your face and think of the jawbone and the teeth and what it would look like without having the rest of this. Like we have some skin and flesh stretched across it, but you've all seen a skeleton, perhaps at the physical therapist's office or something like that. And you can just look and see, okay, there's a skeleton in there. You're not a skeleton, nor are you the flesh that goes around the skeleton. So he said, be aware of the fact that you're different from your body and work on yourself, which is different from the body. And so he gave 3 very powerful ways in which you can evolve spiritually. One was his main doctrine, as you've heard me say many times, through spiritual vibration. So we are what we hear. We're also what we eat. Now, he mentioned spiritual food. Diet is a very important aspect, not just thinking about, okay, I work out in a certain way, so I need this certain kind of nutrition. Of course, that's important. Nutrition on a basic level, what kind of nutrients you're getting. But the food we eat is so intimate. It goes into our mouth, touches our tongue, it goes into our stomach, and every molecule of that food ends up being assimilated in our body. And it has a kind of vibration that goes along with it. There are ways in which when people are cooking and they handle food, they're actually putting or instilling it with a kind of vibration. It has a vibrational force, just like everything else in this world. So the Golden Monk said, be very particular about what you eat. Spiritualize your food. So in that way, he talked about picking foods that are innocent, make a quality choice. Try to eat things that are as non-violent as possible. And also take your food as a kind of a spiritual process. There's a way of being grateful for what you're getting and offering it back, saying, thank you for this. And third thing he talked about was spiritual association. Find high-minded people. If you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. And if you're in the room with those who are high-minded, they'll lift you up. So try to find what he called sadhu sangha, or association with those who are spiritually advanced. These 3 things, spiritual vibration, spiritual food, spiritual association, will transform us from the inside out when we take advantage of them. Then it gives us the wherewithal to contribute to others. That's the contribution principle. So, and incidentally, he recommended, did the Golden Monk, that something that we can contribute, not just to ourselves, but to others, is spiritual sound vibration. You can share it with others. Spiritual food, definitely, and association, you can share with others as well. Or you can create a space in which, like for instance, here in Burlingame, in my home for many, many years, my wife and I had a what we call a Sangha program where people could come in once a week. We sort of outgrew it, and we've been traveling a lot more, so we moved it to a bigger location. But our home accommodated quite a few people every week. They'd come in for a program where we'd have spiritual food, spiritual sound vibration, spiritual association. And same people came. It was 16 years in a row every weekend. It was definitely transformative for us. And from what we heard from many other people who are still doing such things, it was very helpful for them also. So you can do it from anywhere, even in your own home. And it's a highly recommended way to keep your own consciousness high, because we all break bread anyway. And it's nice to create a space where people can come in and intentionally keep a high vibration. I know you do that, JM. You have special space you create for people to come in, right?
Yeah, and I think it goes with the third principle. It's the spiritual association. So I benefited by associating with you and others who have spiritual inclination, and then that inspired both my wife and I to actually try to bring that vibration into our own place, and both online and at home. So yeah, definitely.
JM's wife is an excellent cook too, so it's a foregone conclusion that people want to show up to such a thing. Yeah, so that is, it's just such a simple and natural thing to do. And getting your home ready for others to come in, that's really powerful. I mean, it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in a little hut or an apartment, but when you have people over for some kind of a spiritual program, then you'll notice that you're always improving internally, meaning inside yourself, and your home also has to be up to standard also, which is very helpful. It's helpful to have that point in time when you have to get ready for it. Okay, let's go to the next point. And while you're listening, everybody, please feel free to tap, tap, tap. Just use your keyboard to communicate. I don't know how it works, some kind of ethereal process. You're tapping somewhere else and it's coming on the screen here. But since we have it, use it liberally. Let me know what you're hearing as you hear it. If there's anything that piques your interest, just write it in the chat box.
Could I
speak up, please?
Thank you. How do we prep our home for guests to come?
First thing is cleanliness. I know, whenever I have a guest over, well, we clean our house from top to bottom because people really notice it. And cleanliness in one's home or in your living space anywhere is touching what's called sattva gun. And we talked about this before. There are 3 gunas or qualities of material nature. Sattva is very clear guna. Now, it takes work to clean, but it's worth it. And in the yoga culture, cleanliness is one of the gateways to higher consciousness. So clean, clean, clean everything, and also unclutter. And it helps also to have sort of a bright environment. So one of the easiest way to brighten your environment is to put fresh flowers in. Highly recommend it. In fact, I go out of my way in my garden to grow all kinds of flowers that bloom in the summer and the spring and the fall and the winter. And I can always do vases. I just got back from Florida, so I don't have a vase behind me today. I usually do. My wife's rushing to get it done. She had other things happening today, but since we just got back, I don't have it, but almost always fresh flowers. that's a way to prep the home also. And also find where people can sit comfortably, either on the floor. We use, like, for those who are floor sitters, which is a good idea because we sit in chairs for so long, you don't use a lot of your abdominal muscles, you get all cramped up. Floor sitting's nice, but it's nice to have zafus. You can get these meditation cushions. They're round like a button. And I carry one with me when I travel. It's inflatable. So wherever I go, I can put it down for my meditations. But at home, it's nice to have those kinds of arrangements ahead of time. And then if you're going to do any kind of music, like playing music, and of course, that's a whole nother topic, what we all call, this is a kind of meditation. It's a group meditation through sound vibration we call kirtan. So I do this all the time. In fact, my house is full of instruments. And, we have various instruments. One of them, actually, I just got a few more of them because I was in India recently and I ordered a few what are called harmoniums. JM, look online and see if you can find a picture of a nice harmonium. I play a harmonium. It's like a piano, only it goes by air. It's more like a accordion, although I saw the bumper sticker, playing accordion, go to jail. So I don't often call it accordion, but it sits on the floor like a little piano. And it's got there's harmoniums. So there's a little bellows at the end. You can see on the backside, and with your left hand, if you're right-handed, you'd pump that. And then in your right hand, you play on the keyboard. So that makes a melodious sound. In fact, I have one right here in my office space here. It's my little studio I'm in. And I have a harmonium in here. So there's that. And then there's other percussion instruments you can get that are really nice. And for people who like to play percussion, if you have a little basket full of percussion instruments, you can have those available to people. And then you can have like a mantra session where you chant the mantra out loud. And then there's a call and response. And that makes a really powerful atmosphere. You can do it anywhere. We've done it in various places. When we were going around, Google invited us to do that. They had a really nice stage area, and we did some of that kind of chanting, and lots of employees came. It was standing room only, actually. Everyone could come in and then call and response. We did it a little bit at Salesforce too, because they had these special places in the building where you could do your meditational practices. And yes, Sudeep said any simple Yamaha keyboard. Casio's good. There's a green Casio that's the smallest one they make, and that one you can take wherever you go. I have one of those. So yeah, those are a few things. Did that help?
Actually, yes. I am so incredibly clean that I have a combination. Most people compliment me always to the sense of serenity in my home and the cleanliness and everything organized and clean. And then I have some family members that are the closer ones that come over and laugh at me and say, I have a little bit of OCD going on. But I love the idea of the fresh flowers. I don't have that on the regular. So the fresh flowers and the music helped a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. And also music, even when we do corporate programs, we go around various places. I always bring a speaker system, because the soundscape creates the kind of creates the environment more prominently than anything. So when people come in, if you have some kind of music that you've very carefully chosen, even before you do kind of participatory meditation. But anyway, if anybody wants to try it, we can hold some live sessions. If you want to try this kind of kirtan meditation, just let us know and I'll arrange it. And I mean, I'm doing it all over the world now, and barely I touch the Bay Area because I just passed through. But we'd love to have kirtan with you sometime if you're interested. We'll pick out a place and we can meet there, and I'll bring my harmonium and a basket full of percussion instruments.
What are
Hi.
Yes.
oh, What are your thoughts on cleansing the home before and after with sage?
Yeah, the sage is helpful. It's got that kind of mystical smell to it, and it's a traditional kind of a purifier. I try to, if I do put any kind of smoke into my environment, I make sure, of course, sage is organic and nice. There are other things like incense, but incense, you have to make sure that the ingredients are really pure, because there's a lot of, I know you didn't bring up incense, I'm just bringing it up preemptively, but there are lots of different kinds of smoke, but I'm careful to, if I do that, I let the smoke really clear out before a lot of people come in, because any organic matter that you burn and then breathe has ultimately puts a little stress on the lungs. So just the essence of it, and the air cleansed with some kind of a herb is kind of nice too. Sudeep?
Yeah, so I just had a comment. You had mentioned about I don't know if you talked about serving food, but even I come from South India, a state called Kerala. But like, I remember when I used to go to the weddings, they would have people who have, I can't find the right word for it, who have a very pleasant countenance to serve food. So we had a thing like, if you're angry or if you feel like, oh, why am I giving away this food? When you serve it, like there's kind of a negative energy being transmitted. So they would, at these weddings, they would actually choose people who were like happy to distribute the food, because you have rows of people sitting, and then there are these people who serve the rice and the curries and all these condiments that go with it. So I think, and that's something I've learned from my wife also, whenever we have a party, we give away all the food. We don't even keep anything leftovers for next day. When we have a potluck, or we kind of give away all the food.
Nice, Sudeep. Yeah, such a nice point. And I can resonate. I do resonate with that. I go to various festivals and places where there's a lot of food served, and I always like to volunteer to distribute the food. Not that I have a very nice countenance, but I always find that it's a really wonderful interaction with people, just to feed them. There's something so visceral and natural about breaking bread, being with people, giving out food in that environment, that just makes everybody happy. And it's one of the main ingredients in the practice of bhakti yoga, is sharing spiritual food together, transcendentally energized food. Nice points. Thank you. JM, anything else we're leaving in the chat box there?
Nirali and Ayushi both says, yes, I like to have Kirtan session. So they are looking forward to it. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's arrange something, JM. We'll have a kirtan.
That will be wonderful.
Those who want to come.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see a few more slides. Golden Monk has a few more points. All right. So second principle, among many that he taught, the fan the spark principle. You know how there's a little spark, let's say in your fireplace, you just look in there, a tiny little spark. And if you fan it, then it conflagrates and it starts to expand. It turns into a fire. So the way he put it was, every living being is actually a spark from the original fire. That spark is of consciousness. That's the real essence of life. That's what really counts, is the conscious spark within each being. For instance, if we look at each other now on this Zoom call, and you just notice there's a living being there, even if we can't see the image, because some of us can't turn on our cameras right now in the environment, but because we know you're there, we feel your presence, there's a spark of consciousness there. If I was just talking to a wall, it would be very different. And so the Golden Monk said that take time to fan the spark. This is part of the giving principle. So let's look at a few of the principles of fanning the spark. Go back to that slide again. So one of the phrases I picked up a long time ago, which I really like, it's so kind of, it's like in the vernacular, but it's like, encourage the heck out of everybody. So everyone you meet, just figure out a way to encourage them. The word encourage, it has the word courage in it, which comes from core, French word, which means the heart. So internally, it's the world is so overwhelming. Just being in a physical body is overwhelming for the spiritual being. We're kind of assaulted at every minute from every direction by all kinds of reversals that we weren't expecting. And the world, the geopolitical situation can feel weighty on us. And just our own relationship with our body and mind can be oppressive. So people need encouragement. We need encouragement. And the more you go out of your way to genuinely encourage people, you'll notice that it rubs off on you. And this is the life of giving, and it's like fanning a spark. Bring out the spiritual essence in each person that you meet, not just people, but also animals, plants, everywhere you go. Try to notice the conscious presence there and then encourage it. Plants like encouragement. Animals like it. Humans definitely like it. Okay, here's a few ways to encourage people. Listen. Listening to people is very powerful. You just take time to actually be with somebody who's burdened, and you just listen. You don't have to solve their problems. You don't have to tell them what to do. But if you just lend an ear and listen to people, it can be very encouraging to them, because oftentimes people feel isolated, and it's a fast-paced life for many people, and they don't even know how they got into it and how they became so burdened by economic forces and social pressures and everything like that. So people need somebody to listen to them and acknowledge. I love this word acknowledge, because by actually, it's got the word knowledge in it. When you place your consciousness somewhere, then you learn something. When you acknowledge something, you become aware of it. Like just a while ago, we acknowledged our own consciousness. You become aware of it. And when you do that, knowledge springs out. When you become aware of the spiritual principle within each person, within a conscious being. I mean, you can even live with somebody and not acknowledge them. You just kind of go through the routine, but you don't acknowledge them as a living being. And oftentimes when we lose someone and we think, oh, God, we didn't even connect after 20, 40 years. So acknowledgement is a spiritual principle, and it's a way to encourage people, just acknowledging that they exist. I mean, one of the worst things is to ignore people. There's ignorance, which comes from ignorance. Okay, the next one is to share the good and the helpful as soon as you think of it. So have you ever, any of you, been in a situation where you thought well of somebody and it just went into your mental system? You think, God, that person's so cool or nice or smart, or they have virtuous qualities. But, you know, it sat there and then after a while dissipated and you just didn't do anything about it. Yeah, well, don't do that. Don't let it go away. Catch it. If you think of somebody in a helpful way, something that could help somebody or something that you appreciate about them, then do something about it right away. Let them know, pass it on to them. And also notice the specifics. Even the smallest things matter in a person's life. Like one encouraging sentence you can say to somebody for the smallest act that they do can resonate with them so deeply that can change their lives, actually. Take time to celebrate people's successes. Don't be envious. Somebody has the success, don't stuff it and think like, well, why did they get successful and not me? Because when you appreciate other people's successes, you enter into that same energy with them. If you really are open-hearted, non-envious, don't be jealous, just celebrate people for what they did, you'll notice, hey, I feel satisfied by doing this. Also, giving appropriate gifts. Gift giving is something really powerful. I was once staying with a family, and they had these dogs, and I was in the lower section of the house, and their dog kept bringing me little gifts from her basket and putting them outside my door. I heard somebody dropping things outside my door, little stuffed toys and all that. I opened the door and I asked the owner of the house, like, what's she doing? The dog says, oh, she likes you. She's bringing you gifts. This pile of them. And the dog looked at me like, hey, I brought you something. So everyone can give gifts. Humans can do it. It's not reserved for a particular time of year. Think of appropriate ways to give people gifts. And you'll notice that it opens up that sense of acknowledgement and the power of it. And then finally, this is really a nice way to live. And actually, there was a whole book about this. I read it in the 1980s about management. It was called The 1 Minute Manager. If anybody's heard of this book, give me a shout out in the chat box and just say I've heard of it. But it was a short book. And the principle of management that the author was espousing was that you can always, Promila's heard of it? Go, good. Your mother had it, Subhatra. That's cool. Catch people doing something right and appreciate them. So always be looking for what people are doing right. And then appreciate it. Take a moment to appreciate it. Like if you see somebody doing something that's noteworthy, praiseworthy, then take a minute to praise them, even 5 seconds. And if that's how your radar is working in the world, you're always looking for what's the thing somebody did right. Even if it's a stranger, you'll notice if somebody does something when you're traveling and they go out of their way for something and you say, hey, that was amazing what you just did. You'll notice that immediately you become a bigger person, the environment changes around that just by that appreciation, that acknowledgement. Mayank, you saw it? 1 Minute Manager, good principle for productivity. Yeah.
Nirali says,
yeah.
Feel like I do these things for others, but realize that I want it back in return when I need it. That hurts unknowingly.
Yeah, so more people should do it so Nirali gets some benefit from it. But in some senses, in some cases, you'll find that, the journey is the reward. Just by doing it, you'll feel like you enter into it too. And also if some environments don't encourage that. So it takes a little while to light that fire in some places, like some cultures aren't used to that. And so either bring the culture up or find other cultures to associate with.
Subhadra says, my mom got her master's degree in management, so it must be a good book.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. And your mom liked it. That's good.
And Nirali says, it feels that overly nice sometimes.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when people aren't receptive, and this is another principle the Golden Monk taught, is that look for those who are open, and then you can pour it in. If you're interacting with those who are not open to taking such appreciation, then he recommended be a little reserved and wait for the open vessel. Sundar has his hand up.
Yes.
Well, I just had one point to add to what you said, Vaish. These are beautiful points. It just reminded me of this concept that's discussed in a book called 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. He talks about how the different points that you talked about, different people are receptive to a particular kind of a love language. For example, some people like receiving gifts, some people like appreciation more than the other thing. So I just wanted to add that point that having that point, understanding one's love language or the people who they interact with can make it more effective.
Yeah, it's a good point. In fact, I once talked to a very successful business person, Peter Burwash. He had Peter Burwash International, and I shared a ride with him from an event that he was speaking at, and I was speaking at also. And he was telling me about his principles for success. in his corporation. And one of them was that he said that whenever he had a new employee, he always asked him, how do you like to take your criticism? Like, there's different ways I can offer it to you, like room for improvement. Which way do you like it? And do you like it immediately, directly, indirectly, by email, by in person, and so forth? And so your point's well taken. In whatever way we extend ourselves to fan the spark in someone by giving them helpful advice or also just appreciation, and people take it according to their natures. So to be sensitive to that, it's an art, actually. The art of giving in that way is really important. It's fine-tuned.
Marilia has an
Really? Yes, please.
Thank you. I have a strange question. So there's a particular person in my family who was an only child and received her whole life in abundance. Spoiled, I guess is the word. And she now has a child, and she loves to receive. It's a going on habitual thing, but she noticed her daughter receiving and didn't like that. Mentioned that her being spoiled made her life turn out poorly and go in a bad direction, and she doesn't want that for her daughter. But I feel that she's swinging the pendulum so far to the other direction, and I don't know how to share with her to find a happy balance in the middle, not to spoil, but not to have the child live completely without. For example, she just started her first day of school, very first day of school in another state. And I sent money to pay for 2 weeks of food, a lunchbox, thermos bottle, and ice square to go in the lunchbox. She only was purchased the food and told that she needed to use her mother's lunchbox and that it looks classy and that she doesn't need a lunchbox. How do we bring warmth to a person's heart like this? Can you help me?
Well, those kind of, our upbringing obviously has a lot to do with our mentality as we grow up, and it can become a little calcified. Each case is individual. That's an anecdotal, situation. So it's hard for me to just give a specific answer for that one person. But in general, everybody has to come to their own point at which they want to improve themselves and develop good qualities. And the world is designed in such a way that if we're out of alignment with some of these high-minded principles, that ultimately we suffer, because there's a kind of, as you mentioned, a pendulum swing that goes on. And whenever we're out of alignment, then there's a reaction to that causes us to suffer either mentally or physically. And those are like warning lights on the dashboard to let us know what's happening. So sometimes people who may be spoiled have to come to a point where they really want help and they reach out. And that's one of the points I mentioned a little earlier, is that you can't always give. Giving's not always possible because not everyone can receive. That's the other side of giving, is there has to be a receiver that's worthy or that can have enough an open heart. I mean, so many times there are great ideas in the world, but not many people can receive them because not everybody's open to it. So you have to look for the open vessels. That was sort of a cursory answer, but it's a important, and it's a kind of a detailed answer that would go with that for an individual.
Thank you. I completely
Thank you for your insightful questions.
Thank
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see. Yes.
4 minutes left.
Okay, let's take a look at the last couple slides.
4 slides.
Yes. So here's the third principle, is the ripening mango principle. So he taught us to see that everyone's special, and because they are, because everyone's unique. So the word in Sanskrit, vishesha, means special. Everyone is unique. There's not one living being that's exactly the same as another. So he taught that a green mango or a ripe mango are both mangoes. So even if somebody isn't fully developed yet, we can still, from a distance, look at them and say, okay, they have potential. So he said the person who's, it's normal, people look at people's past and say, this is who they are. Somebody who's a little more advanced looks at how they are right now and says, okay, this is how I'm going to take them. But the most advanced person is one who sees each person, each living being, as having potential for the future. And that's part of the vision of seeing everyone as special. They have potential to grow. So he called this anupashyati. And he said, living beings are amazing. If you look at each one of them, they're amazing. They're also not their material bodies. So practice seeing that the body's just a vehicle. Like somebody drives a Volvo, somebody else drives I don't know what other kind of cars are there, Yugo, or some other thing, bicycle, whatever vehicle you have, it's just a vehicle. So the body's just that. And each living being has unlimited potential. And then I'll cover these questions in just a sec. We'll go to the next one, which is the penny principle. And I've added a little Japanese in here because I love this. Chiri mutsumareba yamatanaru. So chiri means dust, and mo, sumoreba. Eba in Japanese means like an if clause. So if you add grains of chiri or a dust, yama means mountain. So tonaru. Naru means to grow, to increase. So chiri mutsumareba yamatanaru means that now, even, so there's a saying in Japanese, even dust, if piled up or when piled up, will becomes a mountain. So definitely, this is one of the Golden Monk's teachings, is everything counts. Let's look at the next slide. He referred to the Bhagavad Gita, in which says, even the smallest spiritual advancements you make are never lost and never go in vain. So employ the miracle of compounding interest. Be very patient with yourself. Go slow to go fast. Be consistent and start over every day. More to be said about this, and we'll circle back to it. What's the last slide?
That's all we had.
Okay. And then how do you evaluate a person to be worthy of giving aside from being open to receiving? I always like to make a conscious connection with people first. When I'm moving about, I'm noticing very specifically how much of a conscious connection I have with someone. Like if you ever said hi to somebody and they go hi back, but they'll smile, but they don't show their teeth. Like, can you see me? What kind of smile is that? Like, not open for business, no talking here. Or if somebody just ignores you or whatever, there are ways in which we are very perceptive as living beings, and we can actually notice how open people are. So that's an art, and there's a lot to be said about it. In fact, that's one of the seminars I just gave out in Florida, was about making conscious contact with people. So we talked about some of the lessons of the Golden Monk. There's so many of them, and that brings us to a close. And one of the principles for continuously evolving is to keep the transcendental vibration going in one's life. You find out what a transcendental vibration is. We talked a little bit about mantra, and then keep it in your soundscape of your life, and you'll naturally improve. So on that note, high in the Himalayas, there are yogis that live in caves and meditate, and every once in a while they come out to get some fruits and roots. And when they see each other on the high mountain peaks in the clear air of the Himalaya, they hold their arms high in the air and they yell out across the valleys this phrase, which means keep the transcendental vibration going. And it goes like this: Haribo.
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 Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.